Hey there, welcome back to Ask Amy. I have a question today from Nick. Nick says, I've been biting my nails for as long as I can remember. It must have started around my teenage years and I'm now 39 years old. I've tried absolutely everything I've come across to stop my nail biting habit, but it never works. I may make some small progress, but nothing is permanent. I've also noticed that my nail biting usually happens during anxiety and boredom. I'm seeing a therapist about anxiety, and that part seems to be improving, but I can't get a hold of my nail biting. It's come to a point where nail biting seems totally involuntary and automatic. I barely notice my hands going near my mouth, and by the time I know it, I've bitten my nails off. My therapist just says to be aware of my actions, which I find impossible at this stage. During anxiety and boredom, I seem to be having big issues with being aware and conscious of my actions when it comes to nail biting. What is your suggestion on making a start to solving this issue without necessarily being aware of my actions? It seems like an endless loop. Okay, well, thank you, Nick, for sending your question. And I hear you. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if you were aware, any of us, if we're aware and we feel like we have a choice, then this wouldn't be happening. So I just want you to know, like, what you're describing of it being feeling involuntary, and like you're just doing it before you know it. I think that's how it goes. I think pretty much anyone who feels really stuck in some sort of habit is having that experience. So that's not unusual, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it's kind of weird because it's like, how do you become more aware? we're just aware when we're aware, right? You just see what you see when you see it. Like I wouldn't even know the first thing about how to make ourselves see something sooner or earlier. And I want you to kind of see that you don't necessarily have to. Now, that's for sure the solution that the mind will want to bring in. And it's very logical. It just makes so much sense. If I could just see this happening, or see the desire, or watch my hand coming toward my mouth and catch it at a certain time, I could prevent it, and then everything would be great. And I know you're not saying it exactly like that, but I did. My mind did for many years. Like that's how it will look. It will look like I need to see something at a certain time, and this should just never happen, and then voila, we're habit free. But again, it doesn't really work that way. No one knows how to do that. We just see what we see when we're aware of it. So what I think, and I've talked to many, many people in these situations where these habits are really, really long-term and they've been around for a while, I want you to just hold it really, really loosely. These things become these problems that we carry around, and now I have this issue and it's been this many years and I need to step in and try to prevent it. And you can feel, as I'm saying that, all the pressure that adds, that this is a big deal, and even your therapist tells you things that aren't helpful and you're just clueless as how to do it. And again, that's all very understandable, but see that as thought too. That's the mind really wanting to solve this for you, but also not knowing how, because it's sort of what's creating it in a sense. So just hold it super loosely. When you notice yourself biting your nails, stop. You can't notice it before you do. So just stop when you notice it, but also notice all the thinking around it about how that was a problem and you should have caught it earlier, and see if you can just really see that as thinking, and just bring some curiosity to this. We're not really in control of what happens. And as you say, in this case, you definitely feel out of control around it. But I think that's how it is with everything. I mean, we're not sitting in here pulling our own strings, like making all of our behaviors happen. It just seems to be things occurring. So the more we can, just notice that with some degree of humility and curiosity and compassion for yourself, and see if you can let this not be a problem that you carry around and try to solve. You're doing great to notice naturally that this seems linked to boredom and anxiety, and to be looking in the direction of seeing anxiety, this thing we call anxiety, differently, to be leaning into those feelings, to be able to feel what you're calling boredom more and more. Like, just being able to be in whatever is here when it's here. There's no better freedom than that. There's no bigger freedom than that. And there's no other way. I don't know. I think like there's no shortcut. That's kind of it, is you sit in all of this, including Finding yourself biting your nails when you don't want to be. That too, that just happened. It doesn't mean anything. See if you can get a sense for how moving and fleeting and changing all of this is. The behaviors, the thoughts, the feelings, everything you see and smell and feel and touch, all of it. It's always changing. It's interesting with, reading your question and then thinking about kids, like young kids develop all kinds of habits, all kinds of irrational fears and attachments to things. And, my 12-year-old still needs his closet doors open when he sleeps, but they have these things and they look so like a source of safety or comfort, and they develop these habits all the time, but they also outgrow them, or that's how we would describe it, right? Like, oh, and then they just outgrew it. And I think that's because they just don't have all the meaning built in. They aren't trying to fix their habits and change it. It doesn't look like it means something about them. They're just in what they're in when they're in it, and then things are always changing and shifting. And that's true for people of any age. And it doesn't matter how long your habit's been around. We just get this tendency when it's been around for a little bit to solidify it in our minds and make it a problem we need to solve. So just hold it really loosely. Just be curious about it. You can't be aware before you are. Just see what you see when you see it, and keep looking at these things you're calling anxiety and boredom, and see if you can just keep leaning into whatever's showing up. It's going to help the habit, and it'll help everything. So thanks, Nick, for sending your question. Send your questions to askamy@thelittleschoolbigchange.com, and I'll see you back here next Monday. Thanks, everyone.